Marquee for the second of the videos today, and I will take you in. Daniel's talking now about his time at the sanctuary.
Except
Go and
apparently
join
there is
Daniel
such a thing as canine
and everybody
anorexia,
else.
which I didn't know, but there is. On a whim, one Sunday, I brought him up to the sanctuary and was seen by the great Tony Crouch and Claire. I purposely did not tell them what was wrong with him, because I thought, fine, let's just see if there's any truth in this. And at the end, I asked them both if they had seen any weak spots or could get to the bottom of anything. And Claire said to me, yes, I've cleared a blockage in his throat. And I said, oh, have you? Right, okay, thank you very much, that's great. On Monday, he started to eat again. Absolutely incredible. I don't know, can't explain it, except that, wow, you know. 2013, I was very seriously ill and spent 3 months in hospital. When I was able to walk again, slowly, I said I wanted to do two things. One, go to the pub, and two, come here. The pub was fantastic, I have to say. But the sanctuary was a real achievement for me, as there was more walking to be done up the drive and around than I had done for a long, long time. And I've been coming up here every Sunday since. About 3 years ago, I volunteered to be one of the directors of a trading company, and from that I became a trustee. Unfortunately, I felt that as someone who was still working on my own business, and I didn't really have the time needed to fully dedicate myself, so I resigned as a trustee but remained as chair of a trading company. I've been renting an office here now for about 3-4 years, so I do feel very involved. The staff are great, without exception. The building is a lovely one to work in, but I think that's too glib, that observation. Working in this wonderful building, surrounded by such lovely grounds, is both inspirational and calming. All the staff here work incredibly hard, and honestly we owe them so much for the dedication and devotion that they all give to the place. They come in at weekends when they're not supposed to. They're amazing. It's so nice to walk in and be greeted by happy and easygoing people, and to have, I must confess, the odd really non-PC conversation, especially with young Phil, who you'll meet later, who is great to let off steam with. It's interesting that everyone here truly believes in why they are here, and that they really don't want to work anywhere else. Of course issues arise, it does in any business or any place where there are staff, but they're smoothed out and life goes back pretty quickly. Working up here for me is more of an escapism, I think, and the kindness I found since I'm being here is truly remarkable. There is also an underlying unique sense of humour that prevails, which further makes this place such fun to work in. Whether it be Alison cackling away in the office next door, and believe me, she does cackle, or quips about having broomsticks coming up the drive, it's always therapeutic. I'm not a particularly spiritual or religious person. I think I describe myself as an agnostic with ideas, if that makes sense. I feel that healing is all about the need to really want something to happen. The healers help that want become reality. It's their methodical belief that is the crux of it all, and miracles do occur. It has to be self-induced, but without somebody helping you through that self-induction, it's not going to happen. Honestly, I applaud everyone involved in the charity, and I look forward to many years of being based in this great place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I'd now like to welcome Jennifer Jones, who is Chair of the Healing Trust. To you, Jennifer.
Hello, good morning. Is it morning? I don't know. I've lost track. Still morning? We're still morning. How lovely to see you. How lovely to see you, Darren. This man was a student of mine 300 years ago at Yarmouth Family College. It's approximately 300 years, something like that. I'm not sure if I'm quite close enough. There we are, I'm better. So, I've been invited to say a little thing about my relationship with the Healing Trust, but also, of course, Harry Edwards. And I would just like to say that, of course, I knew about Harry Edwards for many, many years. And then about just under a year ago, I became chair of the Healing Trust. I've been a member of it for something like 20 years, but I've been doing healing with people like the SAGB, the SNU, the College of Psychic Studies over the years. So I've been healing now for something like 30 years. And just before the previous people stepped down, the previous trustees of the Healing Trust stepped down, the chair of the trustees at that time said to me, "Do you feel like being chair? You'd be really good at that, Jennifer. You'd be really good." And I went, "Oh, I don't think so. Good heavens, why would I want to do that?" And then I went, "Actually, that would be quite fun." Yes. And so I put myself up, and here I am. And can I say that I was going to say 90% of my time with the Healing Trust is completely joyous and wonderful, and I love it, absolutely love it, and the amount of connections that I make with lots of lovely people like you guys has been fantastic. Then there's the 10% maybe of really, I'm not even going to go there, emails that come in complaining. I'm not going to go there now. But anyway, so just after I became chair, the lovely Martin, who's now disappeared, he's over there, Martin had already been in conversation with Gillian, who was my predecessor, and had invited her to come here. And just after I became chair, she sent me the email from Martin, and I went, "Oh yes, I'm going there." So 10 days after I became chair of the Healing Trust, I was in this building. And before that, actually, there's a bit more about Harry to impart to you. We were talking, just like you guys have been doing your healing minute every morning at 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, sorry. I'm often there, actually. I also thought, right, let's do something on the Healing Trust Facebook page, whereby we do something. I do it once a week on a Wednesday evening at 9 o'clock, where we have a distant healing meditation. And I was very much inspired by you guys doing that thing before I got round to it. Anyway, I was having a conversation with one of the tutors of the Healing Trust and saying, I wonder what Harry would think about this. What does Harry think about Zoom? So I'm talking to my colleague who's up in the northeast and saying, I'm going to ask Harry. I'm going to ask him what he thinks. So I did. Hello, Harry. What do you think about this Zoom thing? What would you have done? Would you have been doing Zoom things? And he said to me, I'm trying to remember. He said to me, if we had the technology that you have, we would have used it. There is no question we would have used it. Thank you. So I came here on that day in October to meet Martin and Teresa and Alison, here she is. And as soon as I parked the car, there he was. And I came into the building, I'm getting emotional now. Came into the building and there he was, jumping with glee. He was seriously jumping with glee. And I thought, this was a man who was coming through as at an older time of his life, not as a child, but he was jumping like a child. He was so excited that I was here. So since then, we've had lots of conversations. I can see Teresa at the back. We've had lots and lots of conversations, and also with Martin. And yes, we are two different organisations. The Healing Trust is only 67 years old. Hey, we're a baby compared to the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary. But of course, Harry was our first member of the Healing Trust, number one, the LFSH. And was very heavily involved and became president, the first president. And when I came here, Teresa was taking me around, and we went into his office. Oh, I'm going to go again. There was a picture of in his office, the picture of Harry, and then on the other wall, at the corner of the room, the other thing that was on the wall was this piece of calligraphy that had been presented by the Council of the NFSH. I can't even say it. And it was presented to Harry for his unswerving dedication to healing. And Teresa took a picture of me, which was lovely. Anyway, so since those days, I've been here back here a few times. So forgive me for leaking a tiny bit. So yes, that's my story about connecting with the healing, with the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary, and I'm really, really pleased and really honoured to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's absolutely lovely to have you here today and for your talk. I'd now like to introduce Jean and Vincent Hill, who knew Mr. Harry Edwards, and they're going to go take us down memory lane to bygone days at the sanctuary.
Thank you, Alison. Hello, everybody. This is indeed a privilege to be here today. I'm going to do a little bit of history. In 1946, Harry Edwards came here with his family, as already been alluded to. In 1948, my parents came here to work for Harry Edwards. My father as chauffeur and general handyman, and my mother helped in the offices, dealing with the healing letters and various other parts of the organisation. In 1952, I rolled up. I don't think that's very commemorative, but I caused my mother a great deal of problems at a very early age, to the extent that I bawled, I shouted and I screamed. And it turned out that on this shoulder I had, behind my collarbone, a lump which forced my collarbone out here. And it was painful, and I let everybody know, because that's what babies do. To the extent that I was carted off around hospitals and various specialists. Oh well, he'll grow out of it. Well, that's all right, but for 3 months my parents didn't get any sleep, because not only did I bawl through the day, I bawled through the night as well. And the upshot of that was that I came up here from the flat where we used to live, and my mum said to Mr. Edwards, "Can you do something with this?" And he looked at me and so the story goes, said, "I wouldn't worry, Mrs. Hill, he'll be okay very shortly." So my mum thought, okay. Because they were very straightforward people, my mum and dad. They came from Gloucester and Herefordshire. So mum went back, I went to bed that night, and they woke up in the morning and thought I was dead. As you can see, I wasn't. And I had no more trouble with it. So that was my first, unbeknownst to me, healing experience. Anyway, to move on from there, I was involved all the way through my life, right up to this ripe old age of 70. And my darling wife here, it says here, has been along with that for 55 years. So, you know, we go back a few years. I can remember some of the family being here, and I was emotionally surprised then by seeing one of Mr. Edwards' grandchildren, who hasn't altered much at all. Really was a shake. Anyhow, what do we get up to around here? Well, I helped my dad clean cars. I helped wash these vehicles, and it was great. I had a wonderful upbringing here. I mean, people think that the Battle of Britain was fought over Kent. It wasn't. We did it on the driveway on bikes. We won. It was just great. And you became part of another family. You have the Edwards family, and you have a healing family. And the healing family are still here today, doing what we've always done. Because the most important thing about the healing here is people who need help can receive it. No two ways about that. Anyway, rant over. Other things we did. Well, one memorable evening, my dad and I were at the flat. We were watching Errol Flynn swash his buckle, as he did, on the black and white TV. Remember those folks? And there came a knock at the door, and Dad went downstairs, and all I could hear was, and my dad say, "Oh my God." And I thought, that doesn't sound right. I was 12 at the time. Anyway, he didn't come back up the stairs, which I was a bit concerned about. So I looked out of the bedroom window, only to see smoke pouring out of one of the windows, which turned out to be Mrs. Brazier's sitting room. I thought, I wonder if they know about that. And obviously they did, because that person who'd come to the door was Dorothy Comerford, who was the secretary of the National Federation of Spiritual Healers, as it was then. And she had shouted at my dad. She'd got a very low voice. Very, very low voice. Could you spare a couple of minutes, please, Miss Neal? My sister's flat's on fire. Hence the, oh my God. So I wandered up, came into the main hall there to meet my dad coming down the stairs. And he said, "Oh, I say, old chap, could you get a couple of fire extinguishers?" Not quite like that, but similar. So we had the Minimax fire extinguishers. I grabbed a couple of these, we shot upstairs. And what happened, the TV had exploded. And in those days, the televisions were thick glass like that. It was like shrapnel. It had exploded and ripped through a sofa, catching fire to the curtains and boiling the fish in the tank, which was not good. The amazing thing was, 2 minutes before then, Mr. Edwards' mother was sitting on that sofa. And fortunately, she'd been taken off to bed. It was sort of not late, but she was early to bed. Had she have been there, we all know what would have happened. Anyway, we're putting the fire out, as you do. And suddenly, a voice said, "You're not doing that right." And we looked at each other and said, "What was that?" Still damping down flames, etc. "You should be doing it like this." Looking around, and even now I can feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing. So Dad said, "Oh, crikey. I think Mrs. Edwards come back in here somewhere." We couldn't see everything for smoke. So he said, "Come and have a look round." So I went behind this sofa where what was left of the sofa. "I can see you." I couldn't see anybody. And then, lying on the floor, was the parrot. Mrs. Brazier used to do a lot of needlecraft, and she used to instruct other people on doing it. And she had a phrase, "Oh, you're not doing that right. Oh, you should be doing it that way." And there was this parrot. However, the parrot survived, and as far as I understand it, and I could be corrected by Angie, I'm sure, he lived to a ripe old age, and I believe his name was Poppet. And I think he was the wrong side of 40 anyway, which is, considering what he went through, was pretty good going. But there were lots of things like that. Mr. Edwards agreed to marry my wife and I in the sanctuary. Beat me to it. I was going to propose and he did it for me. And I can pass over to the better half of this duo and explain what happened.
Well, I met Mr. Edwards at 1968, sweet 16 I was, and the reason I came here at all was because this is where Vincent lived, so this is where I came to see him. I didn't know what went on here, had no idea who Mr. Edwards was or what went on, but of course that all changed very rapidly. I saw him do a demonstration at the old Civic Hall in Guildford, and I wasn't going to go in to the demonstration. I was going to stay with Vincent and sell the books. But he obviously wanted me to go in and see this demonstration. And he said, well, if it's not for you, sit at the back and then you can just come out. Well, I went in and things got underway. And no, there was no way I was coming out of there. And the demonstrations got started, and Mr. Edwards would invite people to come up with different conditions. And this man was invited up onto the stage who was wearing a white surgical collar. And I thought, oh, I didn't actually know him, but he was from the village where I lived. And I thought, oh, this will be interesting. So he came up onto the stage and Mr. Edwards asked him to take his collar off while he gave him the healing. At the end of the healing, he said to him, the healing is finished now. Please go back to your seat, take your collar. So I thought, this will be interesting when I see him again in the village. Will he or will he not have his collar on? No, was the answer. He didn't. And I thought, oh, I've got to find out a bit more about this. And of course, I was lucky enough then to be able to have lots of conversations with Mr. Edwards about his healing, and eventually became a healer myself. That was the start of my journey. It was when we were going to take Mr. Edwards to one of the NFSH meetings in Loughton that the proposal came. We had taken him to Loughton before, and usually he always wanted to sit in the back. He didn't want to sit in the front, and I would sit in the front with Vincent.
Bad drive.
But we pulled up, and he said, "Oh, I want you to come in the back with me. I've got something I want to talk about." And I thought, "Oh, interesting." So, but we all had almost got to London, and I thought, well, there's not much different conversation going on here. I don't know what he wants to ask. And then all of a sudden out it came. When are you two getting married then?
At that point, I swerved off the M40 at an alarming rate, corrected myself, got back, and looked in the mirror in horror.
So we, it was a bit of a shock really, so we sort of muddled a bit and said, well, yes, we have thought about it, and we need to find somewhere to live, and he said, you don't want to worry about things like that, that'll get sorted out. He said, the reason I'm asking you, he said, is because if you would like me to, I would like to marry you in the sanctuary. So, that was it.
Yeah,
so,
no way out.
No, you couldn't say no. So we were married on the 23rd of March in 1974. And my association has been with the sanctuary all that number of years. And unfortunately, when Mr. Edwards passed on the 7th of December 1976, we wondered what might happen. But fortunately, Mr. and Mrs. Branch took up and took the sanctuary forward.
Yeah, so, the moral there is don't let your boss sit in the back of the car with your wife. There are lots of various things that have happened over the years here. Some of them are amazing. As a child, the Bluebells room, which was Mr. Edwards, we used to call it the games room because there was a badminton court in there and he was a very adept player. And going up onto a balustrade raised area quite high up in the building, there was a spiral staircase. It was wonderful. The sword fights we had up and down these stairs was incredible. But all the time you knew something was going on here that at an early age you couldn't quite comprehend. And what you found was that up on this balcony area were wheelchairs, were sticks, were crutches, where people had come to this place using these items and leaving them behind. They're fantastic, absolutely unbelievable. And the stories you get, one in particular, where somebody came to see Mr. Edwards in the sanctuary, now the chapel, and he sat down in front of Mr. Edwards, and Mr. Edwards said to him, "Well, lad," because everybody was lad, "what's the trouble with you?" He said, I've got problems with my knees. Oh, right. So he said, see what we can do about that then. He said, the man said, well, I'm only here because my wife made me come. Ah, okay. So he put his hands on his knee, and 2 or 3 minutes he said, so how's the knee now? He said, doesn't hurt. So moved it around, and then a look of horror came on the man's face. He said, don't bother with the other one. And Mr. Edwards said, too late, lad, it's already happened. He went, there goes my benefit. And there were things like that. I mean, he had great humour. I drove him back from London, from the Strand one evening. And in those days we didn't have the luxury of the now dual carriageway of the A3. You went to every village in Surrey. And we left the Strand. There were 3 other people in the car, myself and Mr. Edwards. He was sitting in the front with me. And as we left the Strand, he started a story. Shaggy dog story. I can't remember it, but I knew as soon as he started it, this is going to go, this is a runner. And I looked in the mirror, and captivation. And he meandered off the story, over to this side and brought something else in, and then over to that side and brought something else in. And all the time he kept this joke going, and I was thinking to myself, how long is this going to last? Well, it lasted till we got to the front door. So I got out of the car, I opened the car door for him, and as I opened the door, out came the punchline. He went inside, laughing his head off, and there was this almighty groan from the back, realising that they spent the last 30 minutes being well and truly taken down the road on a shaggy dog story. But he had a great sense of humour. My father was cutting the lawn one day. We used to cut this lawn, believe it or not, with a sickle. Two guys. Can you imagine that? So Dad asked him, can we have a lawnmower, please? Yes, okay, that's not a problem. Go and buy one. So Dad went to the local manufacturers, who was Dennis and Co, who make fire engines now, and they produced these beautiful green and brass and wonderful machines that you could sit on at the back and you'd tear around the lawn. And Dad brought it back, and Mr. Edwards came out of his office to see what he'd purchased. And he watched him go up and down a couple of times, sort of leaned over that wall there. So Dad pulled up, said, excuse me, Mr. Hill. And Dad said, yes. He said, you seem to be cutting the daisies. And my dad said, well, yeah, I am. He said, I like daisies. So Dad said, well, I can't cut round them, can I? No, I suppose not. Oh, well, never mind. And you never knew whether that was a wind-up or he was being serious. But it was just the way he did things. He had such a persona about him, and that I think that helped how he was with his patients, with his clients, whatever you want to call them. He immediately put people at ease. He wasn't into flim flam. He said, I remember him saying once about healing, you've got these, you've got that, and you've got this. Actually, it's that simple. There's no airs and graces. Let's get on. Healing is work. It's a job. Get on and do it. And one demonstration he went to, there was he used to call people up, as my wife alluded to, and at the end of the demonstrations, because there were so many people wanting healing, the healers who had hosted this would come up on the stage and do healing for any other persons who wanted it. And George Burton and Olive Burton were his partners then in the healing endeavour. They were there, and George used to stand behind the patient, client, whatever you want to call them, and Mr. Edwards was sitting in front. And there were a couple of other healers, and Mr. Edwards had his hands on this person, and he looked across, and next door was another healer going. So He sort of looked at him, looked at Mr. Burton. He said, George, he said, what's he doing? So George said, I don't know. He said, oh, okay. So he said, George, he said, go and ask him what he's doing. So Mr. Burton went across to this other guy, had a few words, came back. What's he doing, George? He's getting rid of all the bad stuff. He's what? He's getting rid of all the bad stuff. All right. George, yes, Henry. Go and get a dustpan and brush that up before somebody trips over it, will you? And that was the man. That was the man. And that's the reason that sometimes you get emotional in this place, because it's so good to be part of it. And we want this place to succeed more than probably most of you know. It's our life. It has been. Always will be. We just hope that through all we can do, we can still get people up this drive. We're not going to get 8,000 letters a week anymore. It's not going to happen, because we've embraced technology, as Mr. Edwards would have done, as you rightly pointed out earlier. He was a great one for innovation, and if it was new and it worked, use it. And use it to the best of its ability, because that's what healing's about. It's about the person who's on the street, who comes here and needs help, and my God will give it to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that's the last of our recordings for this morning. We will be back again in a little while. We've got the opening of the Rose Garden, so please join us then.